The prison gates opened at exactly 8 in the morning, and the woman who walked through them was nothing like the girl who had entered 5 years earlier. She stopped just beyond the gates, carrying a single black bag in one hand, and for several seconds she simply stood there, breathing the cold morning air as though she had forgotten what freedom felt like. 5 years ago, her wrists had been chained. 5 years ago, her own family had watched her disappear behind those walls for a murder she did not commit. And 5 years ago, her younger sister had stood in the courtroom, looked directly into her eyes, and remained silent. Now, the woman walking free was Kaelen Carter, the firstborn daughter of the Carter pack, the daughter who had once been expected to inherit everything. But prison had changed her. Her body was harder. Her movements were quieter. And the wolf inside her no longer fought for control. It obeyed her. Kaelen took 3 slow steps away from the prison entrance. Behind her, the heavy steel gates began closing again. She did not turn around. There was nothing behind those gates she wanted to see again. She had spent 5 years counting days, then months, then eventually stopped counting altogether. The guards had once known her as the frightened young woman who arrived screaming that she was innocent. They remembered how she cried during her first night. They remembered how she refused food for 2 days. They remembered how she repeatedly asked for one thing, a chance to speak to her sister. But the woman standing before them now had no tears. Her dark hair had been cut short, revealing the sharp lines of her face. Her shoulders were broader from years of physical training. Her hands carried small scars that had never completely faded. Yet the most important difference could not be seen by ordinary human eyes. Deep inside her, something had changed. The wolf that had once fought violently against her control had finally learned to listen. A black sedan waited near the prison road. Kaelen immediately recognized the silver wolf emblem carved into its door. The Carter family crest. Her father's crest. For 5 years, she had imagined what it would feel like to see that symbol again. Sometimes she imagined destroying it. Sometimes she imagined walking past it without feeling anything. She had been wrong about both. The sight of it still hurt. A man in a dark coat stepped out of the driver's seat and walked toward her. He was older than she remembered, with gray beginning to show in his hair. He stopped several feet away and lowered his head respectfully. "Miss Carter," he said. "Your father sent me." Kaelen stared at him. "He wants you home." For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she looked at the family crest again and gave a small smile. "Home?" she asked. "I don't have a home anymore." The driver looked uncomfortable. He had clearly been instructed to bring her back without argument. Kaelen placed her bag in the trunk and climbed into the back seat. As the car pulled away, the prison disappeared behind them. She looked through the window at the road ahead, but her mind was already somewhere else. 5 years earlier, she had left her family's estate believing she would return within days. She had believed her father would fix everything. She had believed her mother would tell the truth. Most importantly, she had believed her sister would finally confess what happened that night. She had believed family meant something. She had been 22 years old when the police came for her. By the time the prison doors opened, she was 27. And during those 5 years, the people she loved most had continued living the life that had been taken from her. Engage in our comment section and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Drop your location below. And subscribe now so you never miss any of our new videos. The road carried Kaelen toward the Carter estate, but she wasn't thinking about revenge yet. She was thinking about the night everything disappeared. It had started with a phone call just after midnight. Kaelen remembered being awakened by her mother's voice. Her mother had sounded terrified. She had told Kaelen to come downstairs immediately. When Kaelen reached the courtyard, she found her younger sister, Lyra, standing barefoot beside a stone fountain. Her white dress was torn. Her hands were shaking. There was blood across her fingers. A few feet away lay the body of a young man named Marcus Hale. He belonged to a neighboring pack and had been involved in a bitter dispute with Kaelen's father. Kaelen froze when she saw him. Then she looked at Lyra. Her sister's face was covered with tears. "Kaelen," Lyra whispered. "I didn't mean to." Kaelen moved toward her immediately. She didn't ask what had happened. She didn't accuse her. She simply took her sister by the shoulders and asked if she was hurt. Lyra shook her head. But something about her body was strange. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably, and dark veins could be seen beneath the skin of her wrists. Her breathing was uneven. Kaelen knew what that meant. Lyra's wolf was trying to emerge. For years, everyone in the Carter pack had believed Lyra was a weak Omega who could barely shift. Unlike Kaelen, she had never been able to complete a transformation properly. Sometimes her fingers became claws before returning to normal. Sometimes her teeth sharpened. Sometimes patches of fur appeared along her arms. The transformations frightened her so badly that Kaelen had spent years protecting her from the pack's cruelty. That night, however, Kaelen saw something different in her sister. Lyra looked at her and whispered, "I killed him." Kaelen's heart dropped. "Tell me exactly what happened." Lyra shook her head. "I don't know." Kaelen looked at Marcus's body and then back at her sister. She knew enough about their kind to understand what a partial transformation could do. A frightened wolf could react before its human mind understood what was happening. But there was something else. Marcus had not simply been injured. He was dead. Kaelen took her sister's hand. "We're going to tell Dad." Lyra immediately pulled away. "No, Lyra. He'll send me away. If it was an accident, he'll help you." Lyra's face changed. "You don't understand." Kaelen stared at her. "Then make me understand." Before Lyra could answer, the doors of the estate opened. Alpha Robert Carter stepped into the courtyard with Luna Victoria behind him. Kaelen knew instantly from her father's expression that this was not going to be handled like a family emergency. Her father looked at Marcus's body, then at Lyra, then finally at Kaelen. For a moment, nobody spoke. Robert Carter had spent decades building the Carter pack into one of the strongest packs in the region. Marcus Hale's death could ignite a war. If the neighboring pack learned that Lyra had killed him, there would be demands for punishment, retaliation, and possibly blood. But if the killer were Kaelen, the situation would be different. Kaelen was the alpha heir. She was strong enough to survive prison. She was old enough to be held responsible. And most importantly, her father believed the pack would accept the sacrifice of its strongest daughter more easily than the destruction of its weakest one. Kaelen noticed the look between her parents. It lasted less than a second, but she saw it. Her mother moved toward Lyra and pulled her into an embrace. Her father remained beside Marcus's body. "Where were you tonight?" he asked Kaelen. She stared at him. "Dad, I just got here." He looked at the blood on her clothes. "Answer the question." Kaelen's eyes narrowed. "I found Lyra." Her father's expression hardened. "And Marcus?" Kaelen didn't answer immediately. He was already dead. Lyra began crying. Her mother held her tighter. Robert looked toward the house. "Everyone leaves this courtyard. Now." Kaelen felt something cold settle inside her chest. It wasn't fear. It was the realization that her father was already thinking about how to control the situation. The following morning, the story had already changed. According to the official version, Kaelen had confronted Marcus during a territorial dispute. She had lost control of her wolf and attacked him. The evidence appeared convincing. There were witnesses who claimed they had heard Kaelen arguing with Marcus. There were claw marks. There was blood. There was even a torn piece of Kaelen's clothing found near the body. But Kaelen knew none of it proved she had killed him. She also knew something else. Lyra had been there. Her sister knew the truth. Kaelen waited for Lyra to speak. She expected her to tell their parents. She expected her to tell the elders. She expected her to walk into the investigation and say, "It was me." Instead, Lyra remained silent. Kaelen confronted her sister privately. "Why aren't you telling them?" Lyra stared at the floor. "I don't know what you mean." "You know exactly what I mean." Kaelen's voice shook with anger. "You told me what happened." Lyra began crying again. "I'm scared." "So am I." "You're stronger than me." Kaelen stared at her. "That doesn't make my life worth less than yours." Lyra looked up. For one moment, Kaelen thought she was finally going to tell the truth. But then Lyra whispered, "Please don't let them take me." Kaelen stepped backward. "You want me to take the blame?" Lyra said nothing. That silence was the answer. The trial lasted weeks. Kaelen sat behind the defendant's table while her own father sat among the witnesses. Her mother cried during almost every hearing, but neither of them told the truth. When the prosecutor asked whether Kaelen had ever displayed uncontrolled aggression, her father said yes. When asked whether Kaelen had argued with Marcus, he said yes. When asked whether she was capable of killing him, he said, "She is an alpha. She is capable of almost anything." Kaelen never forgot those words. The man who had taught her how to fight had used her strength as evidence against her. The woman who had raised her had watched it happen. And her sister, the person she had protected for most of her life, sat silently in the front row. When the judge finally announced the sentence, Kaelen felt as though the entire room had stopped breathing. 5 years. She turned toward her family. Her mother was crying. Her father wouldn't meet her eyes. Lyra was trembling. Kaelen was escorted away. As the officers pulled her toward the doors, she stopped and looked directly at her sister. "Tell them the truth." Lyra's lips parted. Nothing came out. Kaelen tried again. "Lyra, please." Her sister lowered her head. Kaelen's voice broke. "Tell them." Lyra finally looked up at her. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Then she whispered the words Kaelen would remember for the next 5 years. "I'm sorry." The prison door slammed shut behind Kaelen. For the first few weeks, she was convinced that her family would come for her. Every morning she waited for news. Every afternoon she expected an appeal. Every evening she imagined her father walking through the prison entrance with the evidence needed to free her. Nothing happened. 1 month passed. Then 2. Then 6. Eventually, Kaelen stopped asking the guards whether anyone had come to see her. Her family had made their decision. They had chosen Lyra. They had chosen the pack's reputation. They had chosen the future they wanted. Kaelen had been removed from it. The first year nearly destroyed her. The prison housed people who had committed crimes within supernatural territories. Some were wolves who could no longer control their transformations. Others had learned to use their strength without restraint. Kaelen entered as an alpha who believed power meant protecting people. Prison taught her that power without control was simply another form of weakness. She was challenged constantly. Other inmates tried to provoke her. They wanted to see whether the alpha heir from the famous Carter pack could actually fight. The first time Kaelen transformed inside the prison, it was not graceful. Her bones shifted violently. Her fingers stretched into claws. Dark fur spread across her arms and shoulders. Her jaw extended, her teeth sharpened, and within seconds the frightened young woman was gone, replaced by a powerful wolf struggling to breathe. She lost control. When she returned to human form, she was lying on the floor, bruised and exhausted. An older prisoner named Nora Whitmore was standing nearby. Nora had spent more than a decade inside the facility and had learned how to control her own transformation. She looked at Kaelen and said, "You're fighting your wolf." Kaelen snapped back, "My wolf is fighting me." Nora shook her head. "No, you're both fighting the same thing." Kaelen didn't understand. Nora explained that transformation was not simply about becoming an animal. In the old legends, werewolves were often described as humans who could take wolf form, sometimes willingly and sometimes against their will. The stories differed, but the idea of crossing between human and wolf forms had existed for centuries. Nora became Kaelen's unofficial teacher. She taught her to stop fearing the transformation. Kaelen learned to feel the change beginning in her hands before it reached her shoulders. She learned to control her breathing when her bones started shifting. She learned that the wolf did not need to disappear for the human to remain in control. She practiced changing one hand into a claw, then returning it to normal. One arm, both hands, her teeth, her eyes. Eventually, she learned to shift her entire body and return to human form without losing consciousness. The process took months, then years. By the 3rd year, Kaelen could transform faster than almost anyone in the prison. By the 4th, she could control the wolf completely. But her physical transformation wasn't the only thing changing. Kaelen stopped asking why her family had betrayed her. She began asking what they were afraid of. That question changed everything. One evening, Nora handed her an old prison record. "Read this." Kaelen opened it. The document contained information about Marcus Hale. He had been investigating something before his death. Something connected to the Carter pack. Something involving an unusual Omega bloodline. Kaelen read the document twice. Marcus had apparently been asking questions about Lyra. Not because he wanted to harm her, but because he believed her inability to complete a transformation was unusual. He had recorded incidents in which Lyra's body appeared to change differently from other Omegas. Her claws appeared without warning. Her senses became unusually strong. And on one occasion, according to the record, she had shifted for several seconds before returning to human form. Kaelen stared at the page. Lyra had lied. The girl she thought was too weak to protect herself had been hiding something. Kaelen turned the page. There was one final note. Marcus had written that he believed Lyra's condition was connected to an old bloodline that had disappeared from the region decades earlier. Kaelen's heart began beating faster. Then she noticed something else. The date on Marcus's investigation was only 3 days before his death, which meant Marcus had not simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He had been looking for something, and whatever he had discovered had been important enough to get him killed. Kaelen closed the file. For the first time in 5 years, she felt something stronger than anger. She felt uncertainty. If Lyra had never been as weak as everyone believed, then why had their parents spent years protecting her? And if Marcus had discovered the truth shortly before he died, then what exactly had happened in that courtyard? Kaelen spent the next year searching for answers. She studied old pack records. She memorized family histories. She learned how alpha bloodlines worked. She discovered that certain werewolf families carried traits that could remain hidden for generations. Some legends describe transformation as a curse, others as a bloodline or supernatural inheritance, and historical accounts show how strongly people once believed in humans changing into wolves. But one discovery frightened her more than anything else. The Carter family records contained a reference to an ancient bloodline. The name had been crossed out. Someone had deliberately removed it. Kaelen copied the remaining words onto a piece of paper. The wolf crown. She didn't understand what it meant. Not yet. Then, 5 years after she entered prison, the guards came to her cell and told her to pack her belongings. Kaelen looked at them. Why? Your sentence is complete. She stared at the door. For 5 years, she had imagined this moment. But now that it had arrived, she felt strangely calm. She packed her few possessions. A pair of old photographs. The prison record. The paper with the words "The Wolf Crown." And a small necklace her sister had given her when they were children. Kaelen held the necklace for several seconds. Then she almost threw it away. Almost. Instead, she put it into her bag. The prison gates opened the next morning. Her family sent a car. They expected the same daughter they had abandoned. They expected someone broken enough to be grateful that they had come to collect her. They had no idea what 5 years had created. The car traveled for nearly 2 hours before the Carter estate appeared in the distance. Kaelen looked through the window. The house was exactly as she remembered it. But something was different. There were more guards. More vehicles. More people. And hanging above the main entrance was the Carter family crest. Only this time, beneath it was another symbol. A silver crown surrounded by a wolf. Kaelen leaned forward. Her breathing stopped for a moment. She had seen that symbol before. It was in Marcus Hale's file. The driver noticed her expression. Something wrong. Kaelen slowly leaned back. No. But inside, she knew she had just found the first piece of the truth. The car stopped. The front doors opened. Her mother came running down the steps. Kaelen. For a moment, Kaelen simply watched her. Victoria Carter looked older. Her hair was streaked with gray. Her face carried years of regret. She reached Kaelen and tried to embrace her. Kaelen allowed it for exactly 2 seconds before stepping away. Her mother began crying. My baby? Kaelen looked at her. You shouldn't call me that. Her mother covered her mouth. Then her father appeared. Alpha Robert Carter stood at the top of the steps. 5 years had changed him too. He was thinner. Older. But he still carried himself like the man who controlled everything. He descended slowly. When he reached Kaelen, he stopped. Neither of them spoke. Finally, Robert said, "Welcome home." Kaelen looked past him. The house, the guards, the family crest, the place where she had grown up. Then she looked at the woman standing behind her father. Lyra. Her little sister was no longer the frightened Omega Kaelen remembered. She was dressed in the colors of the Alpha Heir. She wore Kaelen's old ceremonial necklace. She stood exactly where Kaelen had once stood. And when their eyes met, Lyra's face went completely pale. Kaelen looked at the necklace around her sister's neck. Then she looked at her father. Then back at Lyra. 5 years ago, Kaelen had begged her sister to tell the truth. 5 years later, she was standing in front of the woman who had taken everything from her. Lyra whispered her name. "Kaelen." Kaelen smiled. This time, there was no warmth in it. "You look good in my life." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And then, from somewhere deep inside Kaelen's body, her wolf stirred. Not violently. Not angrily. Almost like it had recognized something. Kaelen's fingers tightened. For half a second, dark fur appeared across her knuckles before disappearing again. Her father saw it. His face changed. It was the first genuine fear Kaelen had seen in him in 5 years. She noticed. And for the first time since walking out of prison, Kaelen understood something. Her father wasn't afraid because she had returned. He was afraid because he knew what she was becoming. And Kaelen was about to find out why. Kaelen did not move. She stood at the bottom of the Carter estate steps while her father stared at her hands, as though he had just witnessed something he had spent years praying would never happen. Lyra noticed it too. Her expression changed from fear to confusion, and then to something Kaelen had seen many times before, the desperate need to know what everyone else knew. "What happened to you?" Lyra finally asked. Kaelen looked at her for several seconds. "Prison happened." Her father cleared his throat. "You have been through a lot. We can talk about everything inside." Kaelen looked at the front door. "Everything." Robert nodded. "Everything." Kaelen gave a quiet laugh. "That's interesting." Her mother stepped closer. "Kaelen, please. We know we made mistakes." Kaelen's eyes hardened. "Mistakes?" she repeated. "You made a decision." Nobody answered. "You chose Lyra," Kaelen continued. "You chose the pack. You chose your reputation. And then you watched me spend 5 years paying for something I didn't do." Her father tried to defend himself. "You don't understand the pressure we were under." Kaelen looked directly into his eyes. "I understood it the night you lied about me." Robert's jaw tightened. Marcus Hale's death could have started a war. "So you gave them your daughter instead." "I was trying to protect everyone." "No," Kaelen said quietly. "You were trying to protect yourself." Her mother began crying again. Kaelen turned toward her. "And please don't cry now. I spent 5 years imagining what it would feel like when you finally regretted what you did. I thought I would feel satisfied. I thought I would feel powerful. But standing here, looking at you, I feel something much worse." Her mother whispered, "What?" Kaelen answered, "I feel nothing." The words landed harder than shouting ever could. Victoria lowered her head. Kaelen walked past them and entered the house. Everything looked almost exactly as she remembered it. The same marble floor. The same staircase. The same portraits of previous Alpha leaders lining the walls. But there was one difference. Her portrait was gone. 5 years earlier, a large painting of Kaelen had hung beside her father's. It had been a symbol of her future as Alpha. Now the wall held Lyra's portrait instead. Kaelen stopped beneath it. Lyra's portrait showed her wearing the ceremonial colors of the Alpha Heir, her expression gentle and elegant. Kaelen stared at it for several seconds. "You replaced me quickly." Lyra looked uncomfortable. "I didn't ask for your position." Kaelen turned toward her. "You wore my necklace." Lyra touched the jewelry around her neck. "Mother gave it to me. That wasn't my question." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Kaelen, I was scared." Kaelen shook her head. "You were scared 5 years ago too. And I went to prison." That night, Kaelen was given her old bedroom. Or what was left of it. Most of her belongings were gone. Her books had disappeared. Her old training equipment was missing. Even the photographs she had kept on the shelves had been removed. Someone had tried to erase her existence. Kaelen stood in the doorway and slowly looked around. Her mother appeared behind her. I thought you would want your room back. Kaelen didn't turn. This isn't my room. Victoria whispered, it was always yours. Kaelen looked at her. No. My room was the place where I believed my family loved me. Her mother began crying again. I know I failed you. Kaelen looked away. You didn't fail me. You abandoned me. Victoria had no answer. Later that night, Kaelen opened Marcus Hale's old file again. She had brought copies of the prison records with her. She placed them across the floor and studied every detail. Marcus had been investigating Lyra's bloodline. But why? What had he discovered? Kaelen remembered something her sister had said 5 years earlier. I don't know what happened. At the time, Kaelen had believed her. Now she wasn't sure. She turned to the final page of the file and found a handwritten note that had not been included in the official report. The handwriting belonged to Marcus. It said that Lyra had transformed in front of him 3 days before his death. Not partially. Not accidentally. Completely. A second line had been written beneath it. The Omega is hiding the wolf. Kaelen stared at the words. Then she heard footsteps outside her door. She closed the file immediately. Lyra entered. For several seconds, neither sister spoke. Finally, Lyra said, I wanted to see you. Kaelen sat on the edge of the bed. You've seen me. No. I wanted to talk. About what? Lyra looked down. About Marcus. Kaelen's expression changed. Why no? Because I should have told the truth. Kaelen stood. You should have told the truth 5 years ago. I know. You should have told the truth when they arrested me. I know. You should have told the truth when they sentenced me. Lyra began crying. I know. Kaelen stepped closer. Then why didn't you? Lyra looked up. Because Dad told me you would only spend a few months away. Kaelen froze. What? Lyra wiped her tears. He told me the evidence would be challenged. He said he would make sure you came home. Kaelen stared at her. 5 years. I know. You watched 5 years pass. I know. And you said nothing. Lyra covered her face. I was afraid. Kaelen's voice became quieter. You weren't afraid of prison. Lyra looked at her. You were afraid of losing the life you got because I was gone. Lyra didn't answer. That silence told Kaelen everything. The next morning, Kaelen walked into the main council chamber. Her father was meeting with the pack elders. The moment she entered, every conversation stopped. Robert looked irritated. This is a private meeting. Kaelen pulled out a chair and sat down. It concerns me. One of the elders looked at her suspiciously. You have been away for 5 years. You no longer understand how this pack operates. Kaelen smiled. You're right. She placed a folder on the table. I don't understand how a pack can call itself honorable after sending an innocent woman to prison. Robert stood. Enough. Kaelen opened the folder. This is the first witness statement from the night Marcus Hale died. She placed it before the elders. This witness says I wasn't at the location when Marcus died. Robert's face changed. Another document followed. This is the payment record for that witness. She placed it on the table. He was paid 2 weeks after my conviction. The room went silent. Robert stared at the document. Where did you get that? Kaelen smiled. Prison gave me 5 years to learn how to find things people thought were buried. She continued placing documents across the table. A second witness had changed their statement. A pack guard had received money. A piece of evidence had been collected hours after the crime, but was recorded as having been found immediately. And then Kaelen placed the most important document on the table. It was a copy of a message sent by her father on the morning after Marcus died. Robert had written, "Protect Lyra at all costs." One of the elders read it twice. Then he looked at Robert. You knew. Robert's silence was enough. Kaelen stood. You all watched me go to prison because you were afraid of what would happen if the truth came out. Her father finally spoke. You don't know what Marcus was investigating. Kaelen turned toward him. Then tell me. Robert looked at Lyra. Lyra immediately lowered her eyes. Kaelen noticed. What did Marcus discover? Her father didn't answer. Kaelen walked toward Lyra. What did he discover? Lyra shook her head. Kaelen. What did he discover? Lyra whispered, I don't know. Kaelen looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, that's the same lie you told me 5 years ago. Lyra suddenly screamed. I didn't know. The room fell silent. Lyra's breathing became rapid. Her fingers curled. Her nails began lengthening. Kaelen stepped back. The transformation had begun. Lyra's hands became claws. Her shoulders shifted. Her jaw tightened. Dark fur appeared along her arms. Several elders backed away in shock. Lyra collapsed onto her knees. Then, in less than a minute, her entire body changed. The weak Omega everyone had known was gone. In her place stood a large black wolf. Kaelen stared at her. She had been right. Lyra had never been incapable of transforming. She had been hiding it. The wolf growled. Kaelen did not attack. She simply said, come back. The wolf stared at her. Then slowly, the transformation reversed. Fur disappeared. The claws shortened. Bones shifted back. Lyra returned to human form, trembling on the floor. Nobody spoke. Kaelen looked toward her father. You knew. Robert finally lowered his head. Yes. That single word changed everything. Kaelen walked toward him. How long? Robert remained silent. How long have you known she could shift? Since she was 16. Kaelen's eyes widened. Lyra was 23. 7 years. 7 years of pretending. 7 years of Kaelen protecting someone who had secretly possessed the strength everyone believed she lacked. Why? Kaelen asked. Robert answered, because her wolf isn't ordinary. Kaelen remembered Marcus's file. The bloodline. Robert's expression changed. You found it. Kaelen nodded. Marcus found it too. Robert closed his eyes. He was going to expose Lyra. And you stopped him. I didn't kill him. Kaelen stepped closer. But you knew what happened. Robert said nothing. Kaelen turned toward Lyra. Did you kill Marcus? Lyra started shaking. Yes. The confession was quiet. But everyone heard it. Kaelen closed her eyes. For 5 years, she had imagined this moment. She had imagined screaming. She had imagined revenge. She had imagined making Lyra suffer. Instead, she simply asked, why? Lyra cried. He found out what I was. What are you? Lyra looked at their father. Robert finally answered. She carries the blood of the first moon alpha. The room became silent. Kaelen had heard the legend before. An ancient bloodline believed to possess unusual control over transformation. A bloodline that could influence wolves without physically attacking them. A bloodline that disappeared generations ago after its last known descendants were hunted by rival packs. Kaelen looked at Lyra. Marcus wanted to expose you. Lyra nodded. He said people would come for me. And you killed him. I lost control. Kaelen stared at her. No. Lyra looked up. Kaelen continued. You didn't lose control that night. Lyra's face changed. You chose to attack him. Lyra began crying. Yes. Kaelen turned away. The truth was finally out. But it wasn't enough. Because one question remained. Why had her father sacrificed Kaelen? Robert answered it himself. Because if the neighboring packs discovered Lyra's bloodline, they would have come for her. Kaelen laughed bitterly. So you gave them me instead. I thought I could protect you. You didn't protect me. I was trying to protect both of you. No. Kaelen looked directly into his eyes. You protected the daughter you thought was valuable. Robert's face fell. Kaelen continued. And you decided I was strong enough to survive being destroyed. Her father lowered his head. For the first time, Alpha Robert Carter looked small. The elders began whispering among themselves. One of them finally said, Kaelen, the pack owes you an apology. Kaelen looked at him. An apology doesn't give me 5 years back. No. An apology doesn't erase what prison did to me. No. An apology doesn't change the fact that the people I trusted watched me disappear. The elder lowered his head. No. Kaelen looked around the room. But I won't become what you accused me of being. She walked toward the center of the council chamber. I won't destroy innocent people because my family hurt me. Then she looked at her father. But I will make sure everyone responsible answers for what they did. The following weeks became the beginning of the Carter family's downfall. Kaelen released the evidence. The pack learned the truth. The witnesses who had lied were stripped of their positions. The elders who had helped conceal evidence were removed from the council. Robert was forced to surrender his authority temporarily while the pack investigated his actions. And Lyra? She confessed publicly. She stood before the entire pack and admitted that she had killed her.Kaelen. She admitted that Kaelen had taken the blame. She admitted that she had remained silent. The crowd was furious, but Kaelen stopped them from attacking her. She will face justice, Kaelen said. But we will not become a mob. Lyra looked at her sister. Why are you protecting me? Kaelen answered, I'm not protecting you. She paused. I'm protecting myself. Lyra didn't understand. Kaelen continued. I spent 5 years in prison because you were afraid to face the consequences of what you did. I won't spend another day allowing your choices to decide who I become. That was the moment something changed between the sisters. Lyra finally understood that forgiveness was not something she could demand. And Kaelen finally understood that revenge did not require cruelty. But the story wasn't finished. Because one night, while Kaelen was reviewing her.Kaelen's records, she found a hidden document inside the old family archive. The document contained a list of names. Several were crossed out. One remained. Kaelen Carter. She stared at it. Then she saw the words beneath her name. Second carrier of the wolf crown. Kaelen's heart stopped. She read the sentence again. Then again. She turned the page. There was a description of a bloodline that could produce 2 carriers in the same generation. One could possess the power to command wolves. The other could possess the power to control transformation itself. Kaelen suddenly remembered her father looking at her hands when she returned from prison. He hadn't been afraid of Lyra. He had been afraid of her. Kaelen stood slowly. Her breathing changed. Her fingers began to transform. Claws emerged. Dark fur spread across her hands. She looked at herself in the mirror. For 5 years, she had believed prison had taught her how to control her wolf. Now she wondered if prison had done something else. Maybe it had awakened something that had been inside her all along. She closed her eyes. Her body transformed. Her human form disappeared beneath fur. But this time, the wolf that emerged was different. Its coat was silver-black. Its posture was unusually controlled. And when Kaelen opened her eyes, she remained completely aware. She transformed back. Human. Calm. In control. Then someone knocked on her door. It was Lyra. Kaelen opened it. Lyra was holding an envelope. I found this in Dad's office. Kaelen took it. Inside was a letter from her.Kaelen. It had been written the night he died. Kaelen read the first line. If you're reading this, then the Carter family has already chosen which daughter they are willing to sacrifice. Kaelen's heart tightened. She continued. But they have made one mistake. They believe the wolf crown belongs to only one sister. Kaelen looked at Lyra. Lyra whispered, there's more. Kaelen read the final paragraph. The first carrier commands the wolf. The second controls the transformation. Together, they can change the balance of every pack in this territory. Kaelen slowly lowered the letter. For 5 years, she had believed her sister was the reason her life had been destroyed. Now she understood that both sisters had been trapped inside a secret their parents had spent years hiding. But there was one final sentence beneath Marcus's signature. Kaelen read it once. Then again. Her face became completely still. If the 2 sisters ever discover the truth, the old enemies of the Carter bloodline will return. Kaelen looked toward the window. Far beyond the estate, 3 distant howls echoed through the night. Lyra heard them too. Her expression changed. Who are they? Kaelen folded the letter. I don't know. Another howl sounded. Closer this time. Kaelen walked toward the window. Then she saw figures approaching the estate from the distant tree line. Not 1. Not 2. Dozens. Werewolves were emerging from human form into their wolf forms as they crossed the Carter territory. Kaelen watched them come closer. Lyra stood beside her. What do they want? Kaelen looked down at the silver wolf emblem on the letter. Then she answered quietly. Me. But Kaelen had spent 5 years in prison learning one lesson above all others. When people came for her, she no longer ran. She opened the front doors, walked outside, and transformed. Her body shifted smoothly. Her hands became claws. Her spine changed. Dark silver fur covered her skin. Her face extended into the powerful form of an alpha wolf. And when she finally stood on 4 legs, the entire Carter pack went silent. Because for the first time, everyone understood the truth. Kaelen had not returned from prison broken. She had returned transformed. And the family that had sacrificed her had unknowingly created the strongest alpha their territory had ever seen. But she did not attack. She stood between her family and the approaching wolves. Then the leader of the approaching pack stepped forward and called out, "Kaelen Carter." Kaelen returned to human form. "What do you want?" The stranger answered, "We came to collect what belongs to the wolf crown." Kaelen looked toward Lyra, then toward her father, then at the wolves standing beyond the gates. 5 years ago, she had been dragged away from this family in chains. Tonight, nobody would be taking her anywhere. She stepped forward. "My name is Kaelen Carter." Her voice was calm. "And I belong to no one." The wolves began to growl. Kaelen's eyes hardened. "You want the wolf crown?" She took another step. "Then come and take it." And that was the moment Kaelen finally understood the truth. Her revenge against her family had never been the real story. The prison had only been the beginning. The betrayal had only been the first test. And the 2 sisters her parents had spent years trying to control were now standing on opposite sides of the same ancient bloodline. One carried the power to command wolves. The other carried the power to command transformation. And together, they possessed something every alpha in the region feared: the power to change the rules of their world. Kaelen looked at Lyra one final time. Lyra nodded. For the first time in 5 years, the sisters stood together. Not because Kaelen had forgotten, not because the betrayal no longer mattered, but because they finally understood that whatever came next, neither sister would ever again allow their parents, their pack, or their enemies to decide their fate. And as the first wave of wolves crossed the boundary, Kaelen took one final breath. Then she shifted again. This time, she did not fight the wolf. She became it.